welcome back to the podcast. My name is Lee and this is Afiq. This is the podcast, Another Mile,
Another Story.
So in this episode, we have a special guest, which is also our friend. He is a mechanic by trade and he is very knowledgeable in this automotive industry.
That's true.
So welcome Ash, welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, no
Starting
problem.
from like where you're from, where you're born, where you raised and stuff.
Okay,
Like that.
so basic introduction. Hi guys, my name's Ash Singh Bhatt. I am I run a automotive service center, basically working on all cars, all brands, just regular maintenance, all that stuff. So basics about me was I started in the automotive industry more or less as an enthusiast. I mean, starting with owning my first car, and then from there just tinkering around with it, just learning how it works. Even just when you were taking your license, they sort of teach you how to just do some basic things, checking engine oils, tire pressures, all that kind of stuff. So that got me started. From there, I think I built a passion towards cars, and I think it was also just a regular walk of life thing where when you reach a certain age, you start playing with. I mean, when we were young, we played with toys. So as you grow up, your toys just grow bigger. So yeah, I was born and raised in KL. I was a bit of a typical person where I didn't have a clear vision of what I wanted to do with my life or what way I was heading.
That age gap is always like that.
So I mean, to me, it was comparing against. Okay, I've got an elder sister who's 3 years older than me. She had that vision early on. I mean, in high school, she was doing accounting. From there, she knew that accountancy is where she wanted to go. Okay. So even with even before getting results with the mock-up test and everything, she used that. She went into help university. So she was that focused person. I was not. So I played around a little bit. I started working in restaurants and all that stuff. My parents told me you seem to be enjoying restaurants. Why don't you go and study something to do with F&B? So I tried it. I got a diploma in F&B. I didn't extend it to a degree because midway through the diploma, I found myself working for companies where I ended up working 12 hours, 14-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts sometimes. Did whatever I had to do, get my paycheck at the end of the month. And but then slowly, as I got a few years later on into it, because I stayed with the company for about 4 to 5 years. I mean, off and on. Whenever I chose to study, I would go and study. I would take a break. So that's during college. So that's my first my diploma, which is in F&B. I studied in Taylor's on this was before the Lakeside campus. This was in the border of Sunway, Subang-ish, the Kurnia, or people know it as the Bali building. Even after finishing my diploma, I was still in F&B for a short while. It wasn't until 2009 that I moved to TOC, which is automotive related. And so it was that 2007, 2008 where I started driving, and that's where I started getting interested in cars. So there were times after working at the restaurant, I would still go back and home and tinker with my car if I had some time.
Okay.
And that's where the passion started, and I figured this is what I want to do.
Okay.
So that's what kicked it off, and
that's how it started. All
yes.
Right. Interesting.
I think the big leap that got me into where I am today was, I think, somewhere in 2010. So this was one of those days I'm either driving to, I can't remember exactly, I think it was driving to work or something like that. And being at that age, young, you tend to do a little bit of a spirited drive every now and then. And so I think I downshifted and I revved it out a little bit too high and blew the engine. And so being a student, you don't have a lot of money, and I mean, I would say that my parents were still semi-supporting me at that time because I was working, so I had some money of my own, but I would not have a large chunk enough to get the repairs done. So, and that was number one. Number two was at that point of time, my mom got a promotion in a job which shifted her to Bukit Jalil Sports School. So for a short time, we were also living out of that school because my mom got the job there, there was quarters there ready for the family and everything. So we moved in. So new area, not knowing where my regular mechanic is, and then for me to get the car towed to him would be a lot more expensive and all that kind of things. So did some digging, made some calls. Somehow or other, I just ended up choosing that shop. So towed the car there, met with the boss, and came up with a deal where he would give me a little bit more, cheaper of a price, provided that, because I actually approached him and I told him that, I would like to learn, I would like to try and tinker with it. And I do know how to turn a wrench. I'm not great, but, I have some experience just by tinkering with my own car. So he would drop down the labor cost and ask me to do some of the more easier stuff first, just start removing things, like the air boxes and everything. So I would say that was the big leap where I was now actually doing proper mechanic stuff. I think it took longer to complete the full. I had to basically rebuild my entire engine because I think my pistons were knocking up into the head.
This is when you are in TOC.
This was before TOC. This was before I started TOC because I think it was probably somewhere around 2008, 2009.
So is it between the FNB and the TOC?
I had at that point of time, I think I had finished FNB. I had finished the diploma. But I was still working in FNB.
Okay.
And I was still unsure that whether I wanted to really do this as a career. But just throughout that whole process where I started rebuilding the engine and everything, and so I was one of those very lucky few. Like a lot of people who have decided they start in automotive, it's very rare that they get to start working on an engine immediately. I mean, working on things surrounding it and stuff like that, brake pads or normal servicing, yes, but not touching an engine directly, like rebuilding it. Like the biggest job everyone fears is overhauling an engine.
Yeah.
My first step as a mechanic, I was overhauling an engine. So, I was nervous as hell, whatever, but I was just confident enough with the shop that I went to, and so he guided me most of the way, and he would explain certain things, and because I had the interest, I would ask him a lot of questions throughout. I would do as much as I can, and I think within less than a week of finishing the car, I went back to FNB. I told my bosses, I said, look, I think I'm trying to change my career. So I said, I'm sorry, but I have to resign, and I went back to the boss, probably about a week and a half later, and I asked him, I was like, can I work here? and because he saw the amount of patience I had and that I was willing to learn, and I was willing to go above and beyond to do. I mean, he used to say like, oh, because it was your own car, which is why you did so much extra. So I told him, I said, all right, fine, why don't we do it on a probation basis? I said, you don't have to pay me nothing. Let me show you that I'm interested in it, that I want to learn. So the guy says, all right, fine, I'm not paying you shit, but prove to me, and if after a couple of days of work, if I can see your quality of work and I like it, right, fine, I'll offer you a job.
Yeah. By the way, I have a question. So like you went to the UK, you got your automotive engineering degree with a placement in Jaguar Land Rover, looking at crunching numbers, basically pushing pencils and paperwork, right?
Yeah.
And now you are in Malaysia, getting your hands dirty, elbow grease. So where was that transition happening?
I suppose basically it even happened before getting my degree. So like I said, I was working with this my former boss in Pudu. So I've had the hands-on part already. Doing the degree was just basically stepping up my understanding to basically progress. I was actually looking for it more as to progress my hands-on stuff, to better understand the parts, to how to improve it. Because, I mean, if I told myself, if I'm ever going to be a mechanic, like if things fail, I need to know why they failed or what I can do, to try and resolve the issue or to make it better so that it doesn't fail again. Because even back then, I knew that like whenever you have problems with a car, it's because something fails or something, whatever. And a lot of these things are basically due to, I wouldn't call it poor manufacturing, but maybe unforeseen circumstances, right? Or sometimes like even there are even parts in the car that are designed to fail, because if those parts don't fail, like it could be a safety issue. So the steering column is supposed to collapse on purpose. So it's designed to fail in a frontal collision so that it doesn't impact you in the chest or face or something like that.
Just go straight through your body.
Yes, exactly. So it's meant to collapse, to go into a weird angle, which in the most case, it would just bend off completely or something, rather than, being shot up towards you. So, either hitting your head, chest, depending on whatever. And usually this was before the invention of airbags. Now actually what it has is what they call a collapsible column, so which means there's an inner tube, outer tube, so it just collapses on each other, and it still has the airbag to protect you. So it's just basically the advances in engineering and processes and all that stuff.
In the UK, did you buy any cars? Did you drive around?
I didn't really buy cars. I think there was one particular summer that I flew up to Germany.
Wow.
Rented a Porsche 911. I think it was a GT2, if I'm not mistaken.
It's going to be like really, really.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So probably, I mean, bucket list kind of a thing. I mean, I wouldn't really say it was on my bucket list. Like the idea came and I figured like, I've got a couple of extra dollars and I'm going to try it out. So went down to Germany, rented a Porsche, and all I want to do is take the car, get on the Autobahn, blast it, drive it legally 200, 300 kilometers an hour and just to say that I've done it.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did.
Was that air-cooled still or water-cooled?
No, it's one of the modern water-cooled engines.
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's water cooled, and then it's just the GT2, so it's the twin turbo. I think back then it was a 3.4, 3.6, I think, twin turbo. So basically, plenty of power. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was 400, 500-ish horsepower, so it was plenty. So yeah, from the warehouse to Autobahn, getting onto the Autobahn probably took us about 20, 30, 40 minutes. So I floored it. So there was a little bit of traffic here and there, so I think I couldn't actually get up, to the speeds I wanted, because I think I was trying to basically max out the meter, which goes off to 320.
Okay, so you got it. I think at that speed you can reach Malaysia already, in like 2 hours. Yeah, did you think about that? Like just exiting the Autobahn, just cross continent, balik KL.
To be able to do that, I would say that I would need to be at 300 for a much longer period, which off the Autobahn would be illegal. Now I'm a student. I don't want to get my visa revoked. I don't want to get shipped out or deported out of the country. So I didn't try anything funny.
What is the fastest?
On the meter, I read it as roughly at about 312 kilometers an hour.
Yikes! That's like airplane speeds already.
Yeah.
Boeing 747.
Yeah, so I basically touched about 312 kilometers, and it was only for a split second,
just that.
Basically, I touched it. I think I held it for maybe a second, and I let off. I was like,
What's the feeling like?
I mean, it's scary, but nonetheless, it's still such a memory for you to be able to do something like that. And like I said, I'm very lucky in that sense. I had a lot of these opportunities to do things like this. I'm pretty sure that any car enthusiast, if you ever had an opportunity like this, you would never, like shy away from it or give up the opportunity. It's every car guy's dream to drive the Autobahn. I mean, we grew up watching Top Gear. There was even one that I used to watch called Fifth Gear, which was basically another British sort of automotive show as well. So seeing these people drive these kind of cars and everything, like we've always and look, I don't come from a filthy rich family that we have Porsches or Lambos or Ferraris. So to be able to do that for for me is such an achievement. Really, but the feelings you had when you do that, like I mean, I'm happy. I'm excited and everything, but at the same time, I'm nervous because it's a rental, and if anything happens, I can't afford it. And driving at those speeds, your palms start getting sweaty. I mean, even driving normally, sometimes I get sweaty palms and stuff. So driving these things, and trust me when I say it's not easy to drive a car at these kind of speeds. I don't care even if the car is made, like you can't drive these cars consistently at 300 kilometers an hour. It's scary as hell. A small flick of a steering and
that's it.
You meet God, man. And I don't think you meet God in a nice way.
I think at the very least you're still here with us today.
Yes.
So you survived.
Yep.
So let's talk about your cars in Malaysia. What kind of cars do you drive now? Like when you got back from the UK, do you still have that same car, or which car do you have the best memories with? The car you held on the longest, highest mileage, whatever, this kind of thing.
When I first got my license, I was basically sharing my mom's car.
Okay.
So my mom had I think it was the 2000 model Proton Wajah with the Mitsubishi 1.6 engine. So that's the first car that I started driving in. Funny story, I even used to sneak the car out when I was 15.
Okay.
You get those mischievous times, 16 years old.
Actually, 15, you already know how to drive car lah.
Actually, I think I learned how to drive when I was 13, 14, around there. I mean, I had friends at that point in time, like I had some friends who were basically doing the same thing. I mean, they were a couple of years older than me, so they were sneaking out cars. So even in the early stages of me working in F&B, I was still using that car. And I think somewhere around 2006, 2007, one of my friends actually called me up and told me it was an emergency. I needed to borrow the car. So I told him, I said, all right, like if it's emergency, fine. But as usual, we always tell our friends, please be careful, whatever, and all that crap. And I think took the car around evening, 4 or 5 in the evening. At 2 in the morning, gives me a call and tells me my car is in a ravine.
Oh, Masuk Gaung.
Masuk Gaung, yes.
Oh my God. Okay, so basically you told him to be careful and he was not careful.
Okay, I mean, I wasn't there because I was at work, but so I don't want to comment and
okay, but it happened.
My friend's alive, everything, whatever. But the car was in a ravine. I think And I think at that point of time, like the insured value was I think 30 plus, and the car was almost $30,000 worth of repairs. And then at 2018, because my mom was working in the government, so she got to the position where you can buy over one of the government cars when you retire. So basically, then the opportunity came to get a Proton Inspira, which is the same car I drive till today.
Any sweet memories with it, like long distance road trips, near misses? Well, whatever comes to mind.
Shit, near misses, I've had too many to count.
Too many to count. All right. What would name one? Genting, Bukit Putus.
One, the best one. The best one.
Stories, I think, I can't remember the exact dates. It's been quite some time.
With this car, I mean.
With this car.
Yeah,
so
with
this car, I would say probably in the early stages when I first got it. As usual, again, same thing. It's the testing. It's to me, it's the new car. Like all the knowledge I have about driving a car has always been with the Waja and stuff like that. So now shifting to this car, it's a bigger body, it's a bigger engine. So I went out, and I think this was probably one of just those random nights. Couldn't sleep or something, stressed out with a lot of other stuff. I was going through a bit of a hard time at that point of time. So decided, late night, 2-3 in the morning, take the car out for a drive. And I think it was on a drive, Max Highway going down towards KLIA, and then just before that, I think the Putrajaya toll, the bend is quite sharp going up towards the toll gates.
I know.
And so I was doing pretty high speeds, so I think 180, 190 or something, whatever. And I think, because it was a bit of a downhill and then it's a bit of a curve, so at the downhill, I think I couldn't really brake in time so the car basically understeered to the point that it was just, I was in the middle lane, so I had, I would say, about maybe 2 lanes worth of room, and I basically just understeered the car right up against the gutter, the railing. I was away from the railing, I think, where it actually finally started to grip back to actually start moving forward again. I think I was probably maybe less than 3-4 inches away from the railing. So that was a big scare for me, and I learned myself, I was like, okay, never go that fast again in the bend.
Oh yeah, I know, even for me, like doing 140, theoretically, of course, thinking, going to KLIA, I was late to pick up someone. Yeah. It's a nice straight shot, and all of a sudden, got corner.
Yeah.
And got toll, even worse. You got to completely stop.
Yeah.
Bro, I got a question. So you had a car for 5 years.
Yeah.
What was the mileage when you bought it, if you remember, and what is it now?
Oh, okay. So it was a high mileage car because it was a government use. So like the car was a daily driven car that would take, shuffle people for meetings and all this kind of stuff. So yes, it was a high mileage car. I think I got it when I was probably about, it was a 2013 model from what I remember. So it was actually already almost 5 years by the time I got it. So I got it at 99,000 kilometers. I think I got the car on I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I had the engine completely torn apart by Saturday.
Okay, right. I was not expecting this.
Yeah, so, okay, funny story was let's go back to my Waja a little bit. So, same thing, when I blew my Waja engine, I think the mileage was about 190 something. So it's gone through almost 200,000 kilometers problem free. And then, my spirited driving, again, same thing, still learning, misshifted, went down again instead of going up. So engine over F, blew the engine, and it was at about 195,000. And I actually even drove that car, even after rebuilding the engine, I drove with that engine right up until about 240, 50, 60,000 maybe, somewhere around there. Initially, it was supposed to be like just a major service, changing all the fluids and stuff like that. And I figured like, how difficult it is to just remove the rocker cover, look at the inside, see if it's still clean. And one thing led to another, and like I said, a couple of days later, my entire engine's on the floor, all in pieces. I think in the past recent years, I've not been driving a lot because of, during the whole lockdown, MCO in 2020, 2021, stuff like that, I don't drive it very much. So I think at the current moment, it's sitting right around 175 maybe. So I've over the 4 or 5 years of owning it, I've only driven about 70,000 kilometers.
I think it's because of the COVID.
Because of COVID, yeah. So it really set back a lot of things, yeah. But it's almost double now, so you're getting there.
Getting there.
Yeah, and you're planning on keeping this car?
For the long term, yes, I plan to.
All right.
I've got some plans with it. So for those of you who know, it's basically the Inspira is basically a rebatch low spec Lancer. There is a variant of the Lancer called the Lancer Rally Art, which has a 2-liter turbocharged engine with all-wheel drive that is called the Baby Evo 10. And so basically, because it's on the same platform and everything, that engine can be transplanted into this car. I've got some mods on the car. It's nothing major. I've got a K&N drop-in air filter, slightly larger brakes, performance rotors, performance pads. I've got coilover suspensions, all that stuff. So it's more towards the handling characteristics. I've got a good set of, I went, I think, about half an inch wider from my stock rim. So from 215 tires, I'm now up to a 235. Just to increase the handling and stuff like that, enjoy it. So it's a fun handling car now. The only thing I'm lacking now is power. The problem is power adders are really, really expensive. So it's going to take me maybe probably another couple of years to get it to where I want it to be, but it's definitely going to be one of those cars that I definitely keep long term.
Speaking of that, right? So I can tell that your car is, I guess, is considered high mileage now for the age, but you don't see it as that way. You see it as, you know, a fresh new chapter for you to continue building on. The car is going to keep you going for a long time. As long as you're around, the car is going to stay, right?
Yeah.
But in Malaysia, we have this myth that that high mileage cars, they're not reliable. They're old, and because of that, it begs for a lower value on the resale market. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, living in Malaysia, look, I understand why people think or have that mentality towards high mileage cars. But to me, actually, another way to look at it is look at it as a high mileage car has probably been better maintained than a low mileage car, because for it to be able to clock in that kind of a mileage. I mean, so let's just give a simple example, like if you have a car that's probably 300,000-400,000 kilometers on the clock compared to maybe the exact same car, same year, whatever, that has a lot less mileage, right? I'm not going to deny the fact that the 300,000-400,000 mileage car might be worse in terms of physical appearance. The paint might be worn down, the interior of the seats might be tattered and torn and all that kind of stuff. But again, like I said, you think of it in the sense of the car has clocked in 300,000 to 400,000 kilometers, which means whatever that person has been doing to look after that car has been a great deal better than probably what 200,000 kilometers. I mean, provided that 200,000 car, you jack it up and you see it's in the outside might look nice, but the engine's completely torn up, or it's running funny or something like that. Whatever, it's less mileage and all that stuff. I've even seen people drive high mileage cars to the point that they do maintain it, but they maintain it maybe on a lower budget or on a lower scale. And driving those kind of cars, I can see that some of them are not in the best of shape.
Can you give an advice for people that would like to start this kind of hobby, whereby they want a vintage car,
or a high mileage car, because it's cheaper, more accessible?
Can you briefly give an advice how to start? Where to start? Just briefly,
I say like a Wajah. It's a highly tunable car.
Maybe a Wajah for a start. So
I would say this is actually quite general. I wouldn't say it's just for the Wajah, but quite general would be looking for body damage, because body damage is where, like, if you start getting big rust spots and stuff like that, is where even if you had all the money in the world where you could repair the rust and everything and stuff like that, the problem is that, to my knowledge, cutting up body panels or certain body panels are allowed. So like your exterior skin, fenders and stuff like that, okay, fine, you can just buy the fender parts. But I'm talking like your rear quarter panels, the floorboards in the cars and stuff like that. So those panels that were welded from the factory, like if you start cutting them up and using, so just to give a bit of context, in the US or in some other countries that I've seen, you can actually buy different panels of the car, whether it's the inner skin or an outer skin. All right, so outer skin is basically what you see on the outside. So like if you take a door, open the door, you've got a big plastic piece, remove that, there is an inner skin and an outer skin. Right, so that's the two plates of metal that is shaped and made into a door. Right, then you have the plastic pieces to make it look pretty. If our local regulation authorities find out that you cut those up and welded them back and stuff like that, the car is no longer road legal. So in Malaysia, we're not so advanced. We don't have all that stuff.
So what do you do? Do you advise them to go to a mechanic they know to check out the car, the condition?
Yes, actually, that's actually a very, very common thing that a lot of people don't know. Is look, if you have a relationship with a mechanic. So I've got a decent relationship with some of my customers to the point like they're actually becoming friends. So I had one customer recently who inherited a little bit of money, I think through his job or something. A big lump of money comes in and he tells me, I want to enjoy a little bit of this money. I'm looking to buy something fun to drive. So he's driving a Civic FD2, which is his daily driver, and he wants to get a BMW, but he wants one of the older ones. And he's even offered to ask me, he's asked me to go with him to actually look at the cars. So I told him, I said, preferably I would prefer if you can actually bring the car. So go and deal with the owner, take it for a test drive, say, can we bring it to a mechanic? And the reason why I say if it's possible, bring it to a mechanic is because my shop will be prepared to give the car a thorough checkup. Like we can lift the car, look at the underneath and stuff like that. We have tools, like, you know, if maybe something, I mean, we don't go in depth to the point that we remove everything, but like, you know, maybe just taking out the wheels to look at the fender liners, the suspension, brakes, all that kind of stuff, so you can see what's happening. So always make sure that the body is in good condition. Make sure there's I mean, a mild rust is like what we call surface rust. So if it's just on the surface where a bit of sandpaper takes it off, that's fine. But if you start getting to the point where you can actually start seeing holes or flaky rust coming off and stuff like that, so that's, for me, is a big red flag. Don't ever try and get that.
Yeah, so you guys have to go and see a mechanic before you want to start this hobby.
Yeah, pre-purchase inspection.
Yes.
Tiada kesan potong sambung.
Yes.
On the food report.
Yes.
What else? Ex-Banjai cars. Make sure the car is not from.
If you cannot find any mechanic, you will find Ash.
Okay.
Yeah. You need to start offering a menu, you know. Pre-purchase inspection.
Just to keep everyone, just to inform everyone, like I do work alone, so if it's possible, if you guys want to come, yes, it's always welcome, but please call me to make an appointment first.
Okay, you do our car first.
Yes. So speaking of cars, I mean, like let's get into car clubs. You did mention to me before the podcast that you have experienced good and bad about car clubs in Malaysia. What is the good of the car club in Malaysia that you joined?
Yeah.
And what are the improvements that can be made?
Yeah, I think we just want to build a healthy community for everyone.
My experience, like joining, I mean, the earlier car clubs when I was in the Wajah, like the Team Imperials, that was like what we call a one make car club, which means if it's a Wajah, everyone is just a Wajah. It's not mixed. Same with the Proton Inspira Club. I joined the Inspira Club where everyone was driving an Inspira. I tend to enjoy the mixed car clubs a lot better now because we are all, I mean, everyone who joins the clubs are always, you know, automotive enthusiasts, car enthusiasts, where we like cars and everything. So it's a lot more fun, like, you know, just rather than looking at the same car over and over again with just different taste. So everyone, like, I mean, I'm very sure that anyone watching would understand. There is a lot of ways to modify a car. You can play with performance, you can play with, you know, just bodywork, making the car look pretty, putting a nice color on it. You have people with who plays with interiors. You can do from, you know, leather upholstery in different colors. I've even seen fluffy dashboard liners and stuff like that. So I mean, everyone has different tastes. I tend to enjoy the mixed car clubs now in the sense that we get to see. I've joined a few of them where I've seen GTRs, Mustangs, I've seen Protons, Satrias, I've seen Myvi's car and everything, and so you see a wider variety of cars with the flavors that they have into their cars and stuff, and it's a bit more interesting, and it's basically it's sharing interest, but also sharing ideas and stuff like that. So like, okay, you know, he did something to his Myvi. Would that look nice on my Inspira? And also I'll try and go and ask him, like, you know, how did you achieve this? You know, what products did you use? You know, what brands and stuff like that. So it's I think it's a lot more. You can share a lot more.
You can interact more.
Yeah, you can interact more, and there is like I said, it's still a lot wider to see. You know, rather than just seeing the same Inspira, you know, doing. And the funny thing is, like in the Inspira Club, you might see, you know, 10 cars doing the exact same thing, you know, that kind of a thing. So whereas like in these car meets, I'm not denying that, you know, there will be certain similarities, of course, but there's also a lot more variety as well.
So as you know, BTB is a community that celebrates high mileage vehicles. So my last question actually would be, what do you think of this BTB by the Billions community?
Yeah, how do you think it could be different?
What do you think about it? Like, what pull you in?
Okay, so I think one of the biggest factors that I left out to what made me join BytheBillions actually is, let's go back to when I used to work in Pudu with my former boss. Now, my former boss has made a name for himself to be I would say probably somewhere in the top 10 classic car restorers in Kuala Lumpur.
Classic cars.
Okay, so I mean, he's known for classic cars, and there has been a few that I've helped him along the way where one of my most memorable ones actually was, I think it was almost 3 years long, where we completely rebuilt, and when I say complete, which means from the ground up, everything, we stripped the car till it was the bare bones, was a W112 fin-tail E-Class Mercedes. Basically, we did all the mechanical parts of it, rebuilding the engine, even though the 123 donor engine was a broken bit that was not running, so we had to rebuild that engine, rebuild the transmission, the rear axle, the suspension, the brakes. So like I said, it was a complete and utter rebuild, which took us 3 years.
All right.
Those were a few, that was the biggest one that I joined in and helped my boss out a lot. There has been a few other projects in between here and there, this one. So from there, that's where I suppose I developed a liking towards classics. So I don't go in too deep because it's having a classic of that caliber now for me. It's not in my financial capability yet. But at some point, like I said, down the future, if the chance comes up, I would love to.
Definitely.
Yeah, jump on it, bro.
Yeah.
So basically, BTB is where you can actually enjoy looking at or appreciate people having this kind of cars.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yes.
So, even though you don't have a vintage car or you don't have a high mileage car, you are more than welcome to join BTB community.
Yeah.
And check us out. Check everybody out. You know, like what Ash did mention. Some, not all can afford, but someday it's an inspiration and it's something that motivates you to work towards it. Yeah. So I guess that will be the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, Ash, for joining us.
Most welcome.
It's very insightful, and you are one very, very detailed mechanic.
Yes. And one hell of a talented guy.
Yeah. Very, very detailed.
Yeah.
So until then, we will catch you in the next episode. This is Another Mile.
Another story. Every kilometer counts.
Yeah. Until then, see you next time.